Two sheriff cruisers rolled into my driveway at 8:12 on a Tuesday morning, lights flashing across my old barn like I'd committed a damn homicide. All because I told one woman 5 simple words. I'm not in your HOA. The crazy part wasn't even the cops. The crazy part was watching Evelyn Mercer stand there in her pressed white pantsuit, clutching her phone like she was saving America from a domestic terrorist, when 3 days earlier she'd threatened to find me over a flagpole and a couple dandelions. Funny how power works in neighborhoods like that. People get a title, a clipboard, maybe a Facebook group with too many followers, and suddenly they think God personally deputized them to control everyone's grass height. My name's Daniel Whitaker. I'm 59 years old, retired Army Corps of Engineers, divorced once, widowed once, and 6 months before all this started, I inherited 42 acres outside a subdivision called Cedar Hollow Estates from my great-uncle Walter. Uncle Walter was the kind of old Southern man who trusted nobody in a suit and read legal contracts for fun. Hadn't thrown away a single document since the Eisenhower administration. The man kept tax records and labeled cigar boxes and property maps folded inside freezer bags like buried treasure. At the time, I thought it was eccentric. Turns out, it was war preparation. The property sat right in the middle of one of those master-planned suburban developments where every house looked like it came out of the same catalog. Identical mailboxes, identical bushes, identical fake farmhouse porches with rocking chairs nobody ever sat in. Meanwhile, my place looked like actual Texas, old cedar fencing, rusted cattle gate, chickens wandering wherever they pleased, windmill creaking at night like something from an old movie. I loved it immediately. First peaceful place I'd had in years. Then I met Evelyn Mercer. Now, listen, every neighborhood has that one person who mistakes being organized for being royalty. Evelyn was that person wrapped in expensive perfume and HOA bylaws. Mid-60s maybe, silver blonde hair sprayed, so stiff it probably survived tornado warnings. Drove a pearl white Lexus with a custom plate that said Cedar One. President of the Cedar Hollow HOA for 7 straight years. People talked about her the way soldiers talk about bad commanders, quiet first, then louder after a beer or two. My neighbor Hank Porter filled me in the first weekend I moved in. Hank was a retired firefighter with a back injury and a permanent coffee mug in his hand. He leaned against my fence while I was fixing a gate and said, "Buddy, if Evelyn comes smiling, duck." I laughed, figured he was exaggerating. He wasn't. Apparently she'd find a family because their Christmas lights stayed up 2 days too long after New Year's. Tried forcing an Iraq veteran to repaint his front door because the shade of blue was emotionally aggressive. Sent violation notices over kids drawing chalk hopscotch on the sidewalk. That woman treated neighborhood regulations like holy scripture. Still, I honestly thought she'd leave me alone. My property wasn't inside the subdivision gates. Never had been. Uncle Walter's ranch existed there decades before Cedar Hollow was even dirt and blueprints. So my first week there, I put up a 25-foot flagpole near the front pasture. American flag on top, Army Corps flag underneath. Nothing political, nothing obnoxious, just pride. Felt good seeing those flags move in the wind while the sun came up over the fields. Like maybe life had finally slowed down enough for me to breathe again. 3 days later, I heard heels crunching down my gravel driveway. I turned around, and there she was, Evelyn Mercer herself, marching toward me, holding a leather binder against her chest like she was delivering court summons from the Queen of England. Didn't wave, didn't smile, just looked around my property like she'd walked into a landfill. "Sir," she said, sharp as broken glass, "your flagpole exceeds Cedar Hollow height restrictions." I remember blinking at her because for a second I genuinely thought she was joking. "Ma'am," I said, wiping dirt off my hands, "this property isn't in Cedar Hollow." Her lips tightened instantly. All homes adjacent to the community are expected to maintain visual compliance standards. Visual compliance standards. Lord help me. I pointed toward the old county marker near my fence line. This land predates your subdivision by almost 60 years. Didn't matter. She opened that binder, pulled out a bright yellow citation form, and slapped it against my truck windshield like she was deputizing herself. $200 for unauthorized exterior structures. Another warning for non-approved agricultural visuals, which apparently meant my chickens offended her spiritually somehow. I should have ignored it. Probably would have if she stopped there. But the next morning, I woke up to another notice taped to my front door, then another the day after that. And standing there in my kitchen with coffee going cold in my hand, reading violation number 3 over weeds on a working ranch, I suddenly heard Uncle Walter's voice in the back of my mind clear as day. Danny, when somebody starts acting like they own the ground under your feet, first thing you do is check who actually owns it. That sentence changed everything. That afternoon, I drove straight to the county records office with Uncle Walter's old metal lockbox rattling around in the passenger seat beside me. The thing weighed about 40 pounds and smelled like dust, motor oil, and old paper, basically the scent of every stubborn old rancher in America. I remember sitting at a red light, thinking maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Evelyn Mercer was just another bored retiree with too much authority and not enough hobbies. Maybe I should pay the stupid fines and move on with my life. Then I noticed another violation notice sticking out from under my windshield wiper. She'd driven onto my property while I was gone. That changed my mood real quick. County clerks' offices always feel the same no matter where you are, fluorescent lights humming overhead, ancient tile floors, people arguing softly about deeds of divorce paperwork, while somebody coughs near a water fountain that probably hasn't worked since Clinton was president. Behind the records counter sat a woman named Gloria Martinez, probably late 60s, cat-eye glasses hanging low on her nose. The second she heard my last name, her eyebrows lifted. Whitaker, she said. You related to Walter Whitaker? Great uncle. She leaned back slowly and let out this little whistle. Honey, your uncle treated property law like religion. That made me smile for the first time all week. I explained the HOA nonsense, the citations, the threats, the woman acting like she owned half the county. Gloria listened without interrupting, then disappeared into a back room and came out carrying 3 thick binders tied together with fading blue ribbon. These are Walter's development agreements from 1994, she said. And trust me, you're going to want to sit down. Turns out Cedar Hollow Estates never fully purchased the land underneath its roads. Not legally. Back when the subdivision was built, the original developers negotiated access rights through Uncle Walter's ranch because the county wouldn't approve construction otherwise. But Walter, being Walter, never transferred permanent ownership. He granted roadway usage easements, conditional ones, meaning the subdivision could use the roads, maintain them, pave them, whatever they wanted, but ownership stayed with him. I stared at the documents while my heartbeat started climbing. You're telling me, I said slowly, all those neighborhood roads technically belong to my family? Gloria smiled over the rim of her glasses. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Now here's the thing. I'm not some greedy land baron. Never cared about any of that. But when someone spends 2 straight weeks trying to humiliate you over grass clippings and flagpoles, then suddenly you discover they've been screaming orders on roads your family actually owns, well, it changes the emotional math a little. Driving home felt different after that. Every street sign I passed looked different. Mercer Lane, Willow Creek Drive, Briar Circle, all built on easements Uncle Walter controlled. And Evelyn Mercer had absolutely no idea. That night, I went through the boxes in Walter's basement for the first time seriously. The basement looked like a conspiracy theorist's dream, shelves packed floor to ceiling with survey maps, legal filings, handwritten notes, old aerial photographs. Dust floated through the yellow lamplight while crickets chirped outside the cellar windows. Around midnight, I found a letter addressed to me. Daniel, if you're reading this, somebody's probably trying to push you around. Don't get angry. Get educated. Angry men lose fights. Prepared men finish them. That old man knew me too damn well. The next morning, things escalated fast. I stepped outside holding coffee and nearly tripped over 3 fresh violation notices taped to my front porch. One for improper livestock visibility, one for weathered fence deterioration, and my personal favorite, non-compliant patriotic display dimensions. She fined me for loving America too aggressively. I laughed so hard coffee came out my nose. Then I noticed a white SUV parked near my barn. Guy wearing khakis was climbing over my fence, taking pictures of my property. Now, there are moments in life where military training just quietly switches back on without asking permission. My brain instantly started assessing distance, exits, body language, intent. The guy had a clipboard and camera, not a weapon, but he was still trespassing. I walked toward him slow. "Morning," I called out. He nearly jumped out of his skin. "Oh, property inspection." "For who?" "C'est da ho lao hua." I looked around at the fence he'd climbed over. "You understand this isn't HOA property, right?" He swallowed hard. "Mrs. Mercer authorized inspection of community-adjacent violations." Community-adjacent violations. God, these people sounded like robots programmed by lawyers. "You got written authorization?" He handed me a paper signed by Evelyn herself. Real official looking too. Letterhead. Signature. Bold font. Like she thought printing things made them legal. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "You climbed a locked fence on a private property without owner permission," I said calmly. "That's criminal trespassing in Texas." The poor guy's confidence evaporated instantly. About 20 minutes later, Deputy Aaron Cole pulled into my driveway. Tall guy, gray buzz cut, looked like he hadn't slept properly since 2008. Good deputy, though. Fair. He read Evelyn's authorization letter once, then sighed the way exhausted men sigh when they realize they're dealing with rich people nonsense again. "Sir," he told the inspector, "this document gives you permission from an HOA. It does not give you permission to trespass outside HOA jurisdiction." But Mrs. Mercer said, "I don't care what Mrs. Mercer said." That felt nice. The inspector left embarrassed, tires spitting gravel on the way out. I figured maybe that would finally cool things down. Instead, Evelyn doubled down. That evening she arrived at my house with 2 board members and an attorney wearing loafers that probably cost more than my first truck. They stood on my porch, trying to look intimidating, while cicadas screamed from the oak trees around us. The attorney smiled first. Slimy little smile, too. "Mr. Whitaker, we believe there's been some confusion regarding your relationship with Cedar Hollow." No confusion on my end. He ignored that. "The board would like to offer honorary community membership, reduced dues, full amenity access, protection from future compliance disputes. Translation, submit quietly and we'll stop harassing you." I took the contract from him and skimmed it. They wanted architectural authority over my property, landscaping oversight, vehicle restrictions, flag regulations, guest limitations, on 42 acres. I actually laughed. "You folks ever hear the phrase, go to hell?" I asked. Evelyn's face hardened instantly. "We're trying to be neighborly." "No, ma'am," I said. "You're trying to establish control." For a second, I saw something underneath her polished, little suburban queen routine. Fear. Tiny flash of it. Like she sensed she'd misjudged me from the beginning. They left angry. But not before Evelyn turned at the bottom of my porch steps and said something that stuck with me. "People like you destroy communities." I remember watching her walk back toward that white Lexus under the glow of my porch light. And honestly, part of me almost felt sorry for her. Because somewhere along the line, she'd confused obedience with community. Thought controlling people was the same thing as protecting them. Unfortunately for her, Uncle Walter had spent 30 years preparing for exactly this kind of person. And I was finally starting to understand why. 3 days later, Evelyn Mercer called the cops on me. And honestly, by then I think she knew she was losing control. You gotta understand something about people like Evelyn. It's never really about fences or flags or weeds. Those are just props. What they actually crave is certainty, the comfort of knowing everybody around them falls in line when they snap their fingers. And the second somebody doesn't, especially somebody calm, it drives them completely insane. That Tuesday morning started quiet enough. Cool breeze moving through the cedar trees, chickens scratching around near the barn, coffee tasting better than usual because I've finally slept through the night. I was standing near the back pasture, checking drainage markers for one of Uncle Walter's old survey maps, when I noticed fresh tire tracks cutting through the grass near the creek easement. Then I saw the orange stakes. Survey stakes. Somebody had entered my property before sunrise and started marking boundaries. I followed them uphill toward the subdivision line, and sure enough, there stood Evelyn, 2 men in reflective vests, and another attorney holding rolled-up blueprints under his arm like they were planning a military invasion. Evelyn crossed her arms the second she saw me. We're conducting an official roadway clarification survey. On my property? On disputed access areas. I almost laughed again. That woman loved inventing legal phrases that didn't exist. One of the survey guys avoided eye contact completely. Smart man. He knew this smelled bad already. I walked over to one of the stakes and pulled it out of the ground slowly. There's no dispute, I said. County records are crystal clear. The attorney stepped forward. Young guy this time. Probably fresh out of law school and still stupid enough to think confidence could replace experience. Mr. Whitaker, Cedar Hollow has maintained these roads for nearly 30 years. Continued maintenance establishes possessory interest. That phrase hit me immediately. Adverse possession. Those idiots were trying to steal the roads. I stared at Evelyn and finally understood why she'd escalated so aggressively the past few weeks. This wasn't just about control anymore. Somewhere along the line, she discovered the same thing I had, that the subdivision never legally owned its infrastructure. And instead of fixing the issue honestly, she decided to bury me under harassment until she could push through fraudulent ownership claims quietly. That realization changed everything inside me. See, up until then, I'd still been treating this like neighborhood drama. Nonsense. Petty suburban politics. But standing there watching survey stakes driven into my family's land while that woman smirked at me across the pasture, it stopped being annoying. It became personal. I called Deputy Cole right there in front of them. 25 minutes later, his cruiser rolled up beside the fence line while heat shimmered off the road and cicadas screamed from the trees loud enough to make your ears ring. Cole stepped out already looking irritated. Morning, Daniel. Morning, Deputy. Think I got another trespassing issue. The young attorney immediately jumped in talking fast about legal surveys and roadway clarification and community obligations. Cole listened maybe 10 seconds before holding up one hand. Simple question, he said. Did the property owner authorize entry? Silence. That's always the beautiful thing about truth. Doesn't require long speeches. The survey crew started packing equipment almost immediately. Evelyn didn't move, though. She just stood there staring at me with this cold expression I'll never forget. Not anger exactly. More like humiliation curdling in a hatred. You think this makes you important? She asked quietly. I looked around at the pasture, the fence, the old windmill spinning lazy against the sky. No, ma'am, I said. I think it makes me the owner. That one hurt her. You could see it land. And that's when she snapped. About an hour later, I drove into Cedar Hollow because, honestly, curiosity got the better of me. I want to see how far this thing had spread. Wanted to know what she'd been telling people behind closed doors. Soon as I entered the subdivision, I started noticing the looks. People staring from driveways. Conversations stopping. One woman actually grabbed her kid's hand and pulled him closer when my truck rolled past. That hit harder than I expected, because suddenly I understood the real damage Evelyn had been doing. She wasn't just targeting me with citations anymore. She'd turned me into a dangerous veteran, aggressive outsider, angry ranch owner threatening property values. She'd poison the entire neighborhood against somebody they'd never even spoken to. That kind of thing sticks with you. I parked near the community clubhouse and walked inside. Conversation died instantly. About 30 people sat in folding chairs while Evelyn stood near the front holding paperwork. The second she saw me, her face tightened like she'd seen a ghost. "Well," she said loudly, "looks like our trespasser decided to join us." I should have stayed calm. Really should have. But something about hearing that word after weeks of lies finally lit the fuse. "Trespasser," I said. "That's funny coming from somebody trying to steal roads she doesn't own." The room went dead quiet. Evelyn laughed nervously. There he goes again with imaginary legal claims. So I pulled a folder out. Every easement, every deed, every county filing Uncle Walter preserved for 30 years. And right there in front of everybody, I laid them across the table one by one. You could actually hear papers sliding against the wood. "Those roads belong to my family," I said calmly. "Always have." Nobody spoke. One older man near the back adjusted his glasses and leaned forward reading the documents like his entire reality just shifted sideways. Then came the moment that changed everything. A woman in the front row slowly raised her hand. "Wait," she said carefully. "If the roads aren't owned by the HOA, then what exactly have we all been paying for?" Lord, you could feel the air leave Evelyn's lungs. That question cracked the whole thing wide open. People started talking over each other, asking about budgets, legal fees, assessments, reserve funds. One guy demanded to know why the HOA spent $80,000 on attorneys last year, while the playground still had broken equipment. Evelyn lost control fast, and desperate people do desperate things. She grabbed her phone right there in front of everyone and dialed 911. I watched it happen almost in slow motion. "Yes," she said loudly, voice shaking. "I need officers at Cedar Hollow Clubhouse immediately. We have a threatening individual causing panic among residents." Half the room stared at her like she'd lost her damn mind, because I was literally just standing there holding paperwork. Deputy Cole arrived with another officer maybe 15 minutes later, and the look on his face when he walked in and saw me standing calmly beside a table full of county records was priceless. Evelyn rushed toward him instantly. "He's threatening the community." Cole looked at me. "You threatening anybody, Daniel?" "No, sir. Just explaining ownership documents." Then one of the homeowners spoke up. Then another. Then 5 more. Suddenly the entire room started turning on Evelyn all at once. Not because of me, because people realized she'd been weaponizing fear for years. Cole finally raised both hands. "All right, enough." The room quieted. Then he looked directly at Evelyn. "Ma'am, filing false police reports is a crime." I swear I've never seen a human face lose color that fast. Nobody spoke for maybe 5 whole seconds. Then from somewhere near the back, an older man muttered the sentence that basically ended her reign forever. So all this time, she was the problem. And honestly, that was the moment the whole neighborhood finally woke up. Now here's the part people still argue about online whenever this story gets reposted somewhere. Should I have gone easier on her? Maybe. Maybe I could have kept quiet. Maybe I could have avoided humiliating her publicly. Maybe I could have just sold the property and disappeared. But here's the thing nobody understands unless they've dealt with someone like Evelyn Mercer. Bullies don't stop when people stay quiet. They stop when somebody finally stands up long enough to expose them. So tell me honestly, if somebody spent weeks trying to destroy your reputation, weaponize your neighbors against you, and steal property your family protected for generations, would you have handled it differently? Or did Evelyn finally get exactly what she earned? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because trust me, people still fight about this one to this day.